Valerie's laughter sliced through the Sunday dinner like a cold blade, as she slammed the wedding album shut right there on the polished oak table. Claire, how could you do this to us? Marrying a woman in front of God and everyone we know. It's not just a mistake, it's a direct slap to everything Mom raised us to believe. I sat frozen, Melanie's warm hand steady under the tablecloth, her thumb tracing small circles on my palm, the only thing keeping me grounded while the rest of the family shifted awkwardly in their chairs. The chandelier above our heads in the old Atlanta house cast long shadows across the faces I had known my whole life. Cousins, aunts, even Uncle Robert, who used to bounce me on his knee at church picnics. Valerie, my older sister by 6 years, sat at the head of the table like she owned the room, her perfect bob haircut framing a face that still looked like the golden child Mom always praised. At 34 she had the husband who led youth group, 2 well-behaved kids coloring quietly in the corner, and a spot on the church board that made her the poster woman for everything our family stood for. I was 28, the younger one who had always been a little too quiet, a little too different, and now, according to her, a full-blown disappointment. Melanie squeezed my hand harder, her dark eyes meeting mine with that quiet strength I had fallen in love with 2 years ago at a teachers' conference downtown. She didn't say anything. She never needed to in moments like this, but I felt her support like a shield. The silence stretched until Aunt Linda cleared her throat and changed the subject to the weather, but the damage was done. Valerie's words echoed in my head long after the plates were cleared and the guests trickled out. Later that night, alone in the guest room Mom had kept exactly as it was since we were girls. I stared at the ceiling fan spinning lazy circles and wondered if my sister was right. Growing up, Sunday sermons had drilled the same message into us. Marriage was between a man and a woman, family came first, and any deviation was a betrayal of the values that built Thompson Legacy Properties from a single rental house into one of Atlanta's most respected real estate empires. Mom had quoted scripture at the dinner table the way other mothers passed the salt. I could still hear her voice saying, "Love the sinner, hate the sin." And I had tried so hard to believe I could be the sinner who stayed inside the lines. But then Melanie happened. She wasn't a rebellion, she was home. The way she laughed at my terrible coffee, the way she listened when I talked about the pressure of carrying Mom's expectations, the way her hand fit in mine like it had always belonged there. When I finally told Mom 6 months before she passed, she had cried, not in anger, but something softer, something I couldn't quite name. She hugged me tighter than usual and whispered, "I just want you to be happy, baby." I thought that was enough. I thought Valerie would eventually come around the same way she had when I dyed my hair purple at 16. But tonight proved how wrong I was. Valerie saw my wedding to Melanie as the final crack in the family foundation, and she wasn't afraid to say it out loud. The next morning the argument picked up where it left off. Valerie cornered me in the kitchen while Melanie was still asleep upstairs. "You think this is just about you, Claire? Mom poured her life into this company and into teaching us right from wrong. What kind of message does your choice send to my kids? To the whole congregation?" Her voice stayed calm, almost gentle, the way pastors do when they're delivering hard truths. That was the worst part, she wasn't screaming. She truly believed she was saving me. I poured coffee with shaking hands and tried to match her tone. "Val, I'm not hurting anyone. Melanie and I love each other. Isn't that what the Bible actually says matters most, love?" She shook her head, eyes sad. "You're twisting words to fit what you want. I love you too much to watch you walk this path alone." By the time Melanie came down, Valerie had already left for her Bible study group, leaving behind the faint scent of her lavender perfume and a heaviness in my chest that no amount of rationalizing could lift. That afternoon Melanie and I walked through Piedmont Park, the same route we took on our first real date. The Atlanta skyline rose in the distance, glass towers reflecting the October sun, and for a moment the world felt normal again. "She'll come around," Melanie said softly, linking our fingers openly now that we were away from family eyes. I wanted to believe her, but deep down I knew Valerie's disapproval wasn't going to fade with time. It was rooted in the same soil that had grown our mother's empire: faith, duty, legacy. And I was the weed threatening to choke it all. Weeks blurred into a tense rhythm of family obligations and silent standoffs. Valerie called every other day with new reasons why my marriage was a problem. Sometimes it was about the business. Thompson Legacy Properties had been struggling since Mom's diagnosis, and Valerie insisted that traditional family values were what kept our clients loyal. Other times it was personal. "My kids ask why Aunt Claire doesn't have a husband," she said one evening over the phone while I sat on the back porch watching fireflies blink in the humid Georgia night. Melanie was inside grading papers, the soft glow of the laptop screen outlining her profile through the window. I wanted to snap back that her kids were 6 and 8 and probably didn't care, but the guilt was already there, thick as the Atlanta humidity. I started going to church again, not because I suddenly agreed with everything, but because part of me missed the comfort of the old hymns and the way the stained glass painted colors across the pews. Pastor Daniels preached on forgiveness that Sunday, and Valerie sat 2 rows ahead, her husband's arm around her shoulders like a picture from a magazine. After the service, she hugged me in the parking lot, the kind of hug that felt more like a warning than affection. "I'm praying for you every night, little sister. God can still fix this if you let him." Her sincerity hurt worse than anger. I drove home replaying every sermon I had ever heard about same-sex relationships, and wondered how the same book that taught love could be used as a weapon against the very thing that made me feel most alive. Melanie never pushed. She just listened when I came home raw from those conversations, made tea the way I liked it, and reminded me that my worth wasn't measured by Valerie's approval. But at night, when the house was quiet, my mind wandered back to childhood memories. Mom teaching us to memorize verses at the kitchen table, Valerie winning every Bible quiz, me trying so hard to be the good girl too. Was I selfish for choosing Melanie? The question gnawed at me until I finally asked Melanie one rainy Tuesday, "Do you ever worry I'm dragging you into a war that's not yours?" She set her book down and took both my hands. "Claire, loving you isn't a war. It's the peace I've been looking for my whole life." Her words should have healed something, but the crack inside me only widened. The business side grew heavier too. Mom's will was still sealed pending the final probate meeting, but Valerie had already started positioning herself as the natural successor. She sent me emails with spreadsheets showing how shifting our marketing to family-friendly developments would bring back conservative investors who had pulled out after rumors of my wedding spread. I stared at those numbers late one night while Melanie slept, wondering if fighting Valerie on this meant fighting Mom's ghost too. The next morning Valerie showed up unannounced with coffee and a forced smile. "Let's put the personal stuff aside for the company, okay? Mom would want us working together." I agreed on the surface, but inside I felt the first real fracture forming. The moment when love for my sister started colliding head-on with love for myself. Thanksgiving arrived like a storm we all pretended wasn't coming. The whole family gathered again in the same dining room, but this time the air was thicker. Valerie's husband led grace, his voice steady as he thanked God for traditional blessings and moral clarity. Melanie sat beside me, her presence a quiet anchor while my niece and nephew chattered about school plays. Halfway through the turkey, Valerie brought up the company again, framing it as a moral duty. "We owe it to Mom to keep the legacy pure," she said, eyes flicking toward me. I felt every pair of eyes at the table. My uncle nodded in agreement. My cousin looked uncomfortable but stayed silent. I wanted to disappear, but Melanie's steady breathing beside me gave me courage. After dinner I found Valerie in Mom's old study, flipping through photo albums the way she had at the wedding. "You really think I'm destroying everything she built?" I asked, voice barely above a whisper. She closed the album slowly. "I think you're choosing yourself over the family that raised you. There's a difference between acceptance and endorsement, Claire. I accept you. I just can't endorse a life that goes against what we were taught." The honesty in her voice stung because I knew she meant every word. She wasn't cruel, she was terrified, for me, for the kids, for the company's soul. I left the room without answering because I didn't have one that wouldn't hurt her back. That night Melanie and I lay awake talking until the early hours. She told me stories about her own conservative family in California, and how she had learned to stand in her truth without apology. "You don't have to choose between loving your sister and loving me," she said. "But you do have to choose yourself." Her words settled somewhere deep, but the guilt remained like a shadow. The following week I started therapy, something Valerie would have called worldly nonsense. And for the first time I admitted out loud that part of me still believed I was breaking my mother's heart from beyond the grave. Christmas came and went with polite distance. Valerie sent gifts for Melanie too, the kind of neutral scarves that said, "I'm trying without actually trying." The probate lawyer finally scheduled the will reading for the second week of January. I told myself it was just paperwork, but Valerie's texts grew more urgent. "We need to present a united front. The company depends on it." I didn't answer. Instead, I held Melanie closer each night, drawing strength from the one relationship that felt completely right. The lawyer's office smelled of lemon polish and old paper. Valerie arrived in her best navy suit, hair perfect, Bible tucked discreetly in her purse like armor. I sat beside Melanie in jeans and a simple blouse, feeling underdressed and overexposed. The reading began with the standard legalese, then the main assets, house, investments, and controlling shares of Thompson Legacy Properties. Valerie leaned forward, ready to hear her name as primary heir. The lawyer cleared his throat and read the codicil Mom had added only 3 months before she died. The one no one knew existed. To my daughter Claire Thompson, I leave 51% controlling interest in Thompson Legacy Properties. The remaining 49% is divided equally among Valerie and any future grandchildren. This is not a mistake. Claire, I saw the courage it took for you to live your truth. I watched you struggle and still choose love. The company needs that same courage to survive the next generation. Valerie, my strong, faithful daughter, you have always carried the torch of tradition. Use your shares to guide with the wisdom I know you possess, but know that true legacy sometimes requires change. Forgive me for keeping this secret, but I needed to make sure my girls would find their own way. The room went dead silent. Valerie's face drained of color. I felt the floor tilt. Mom had known. She had chosen me, not out of favoritism, but out of a quiet belief I never suspected. Valerie stood so fast her chair scraped the hardwood. This can't be right. Mother would never. The lawyer slid the notarized document across the desk. There, in Mom's familiar looping handwriting, was a personal letter addressed to both of us. Valerie read it first, tears welling, then passed it to me with shaking hands. Mom had written, "Valerie, your faith has always been my pride. Claire, your heart has always been my hope. Together you are stronger than apart. Please don't let pride or pain divide what I built for you both." Valerie left without another word. I sat there holding Melanie's hand, the weight of 51% pressing on my chest like a physical thing. That night Valerie called, voice raw. How could she do this to me? I was the one who stayed, who followed every rule. I had no answer that wouldn't sound like gloating. For the first time since the wedding, I heard something new in my sister's voice. Not just judgment but genuine hurt. And I realized the inheritance wasn't a gift. It was a test none of us had asked for. The board meeting 2 weeks later felt like stepping into a minefield. I walked in with Melanie beside me, not as a wife this time but as moral support, and took the seat at the head of the long table for the first time in my life. Valerie sat directly across, eyes red-rimmed but spine straight. The other directors shifted uncomfortably as I outlined my vision. Inclusive housing initiatives, partnerships with local LGBTQ organizations, a rebranding that reflected modern Atlanta instead of 1980s conservative values. Valerie's voice cut through the presentation like ice. This isn't what Mother built. Our clients expect stability, not social experiments. The debate stretched for hours. Directors I had known since childhood looked torn. Some nodding at my points about growth potential, others glancing at Valerie for reassurance. After the meeting, Valerie cornered me in the hallway. "You're using Mom's money to erase everything she stood for." Her words landed like stones. "No, Val. I'm using it to make sure the company survives by actually serving the city we live in." She laughed bitterly. "Serving? Or pushing your agenda?" The accusation stung because part of me wondered if she was right. That night I lay awake replaying every decision. Melanie listened as I confessed my fears. What if I'm becoming the bully now? She kissed my forehead. "You're becoming the leader your mother believed you could be. There's a difference." Valerie stopped coming to Sunday dinners. Her kids asked why Aunt Claire wasn't at church anymore. I felt the family fracturing along lines I had drawn with my very existence. Yet every time I considered stepping back, giving Valerie more say, the memory of Mom's letter stopped me. She had trusted me with the majority for a reason. The responsibility was crushing and liberating at the same time. Spring brought blooming dogwoods and the hardest conversation we had ever had. Valerie showed up at my door one Saturday morning without warning, the same lavender perfume trailing her like memory. We sat on the back porch with coffee going cold between us. "I've been angry at you for months," she said quietly. "But mostly I've been angry at Mom for choosing sides." I nodded, throat tight. "I never asked for the shares, Val. I just asked to be allowed to love Milani without losing my family." She looked at me, then really looked, and for the first time I saw the exhaustion behind her perfect facade. I thought if I prayed hard enough, if I stayed the good daughter, everything would stay the same. But nothing stays the same, does it? We talked for hours. She admitted her fear that changing the company meant losing the last piece of Mom she could control. I admitted my guilt for making her feel replaced. Neither of us apologized for our core beliefs, but we both apologized for the pain we had caused each other. By summer, the company had launched its first inclusive housing project, and Valerie quietly voted her shares in favor of the expansion. She still went to church every Sunday. I still held Milani's hand in public. Some family members drifted away. Others stayed closer than before. The losses were real. Holidays felt smaller. Certain conversations stayed off limits. But the freedom to stop pretending was worth every fracture. Sitting on the same porch months later watching Milani plant flowers in the garden Mom had loved, I realized the real inheritance wasn't the shares or the houses. It was the courage to carry both love and loss at the same time. Valerie and I would never see the world the same way again, but we had stopped trying to change each other. That had to be enough. In the end, did choosing my authentic self truly honor my mother's legacy? Or did it destroy the family she sacrificed everything to build?